Okay, I think I got it. I'm about to check. I'll call you back if I need help. What? Or Taylor Swift. So delayed, I just got to see myself walk past. That is uncomfortable.
It's delayed.
last time. We don't have, we have not been ranked yet, but not too much new news. A couple big things though. We now have an official date for our Board of Student Body President's Higher Education Rally that we'll be hosting in Frankfurt. If you all are interested in coming to the Rotunda, speaking your mind, and fighting for the future of higher education in the state of Kentucky, put February 13th on your calendar from 1 to 3. More info to come. We'll be meeting as a board at the end of this week, kind of hammer out some more of the logistical pieces, iron out who we would like to speak. I'm thinking in our lineup we'll have people like James Kay. Maybe if we can get the commissioner, we'll invite the governor, see what happens. I've been getting a lot of questions and concerns about the presidential search, and I spoke about this in e-board, and I sent you all an email earlier. If you all have been hearing anything from students, have any questions or concerns about how the presidential search is going, you can first tell them the presidential search has not started, because we legally cannot begin it. And then if they have any questions in the process and how that's going to look, we're going to get further into the weeds with that as we move into the next semester, as far as outlining the points and what we want to see in our next president. Specifically, we're waiting on faculty. I know faculty has been hard at work putting together theirs, and from what I've seen so far, I think it'll be a great place for us to start at the base. We can continue to amend and add and adjust from there. And then similarly, we need to kind of develop the framework for what it'll look like for how we're going to identify the student self comprising student advisory committee. Got some different thoughts. I've got to pull the old committee search from 2002. Got to find, I think Dr. Billington may be one of the few that was around for it, so he and I are going to meet and figure out what that's going to look like and identify that and the stakeholders and populations we want to make sure we incorporate. I think Amanda will touch a little bit on campus climate in her report. As you saw, this was not supposed to be announced tonight about the Confederate statue relocation. The Meade County Messenger broke the news a little sooner than anticipated. Keep your eyes and ears open and out. If you see anything wild, I mean, this has been known that it was coming since May, but this is a project of the city that the university is party to by virtue of the fact that it happens on our campus, but hopefully it'll be smooth and peaceful. You saw my email earlier. We have a bunch of extra tickets out of the president's office for the Thursday game. If you're interested, fill out the form and let me know. I'll get that back to Joe. They will be lower levels. Because of the time change, a lot of people can't go. So if you have time for a Thursday matinee basketball game, that's all you. And then finally, been getting lots of good feedback still on the potential of an ACC Diversity Summit. Still have a lot of that to work out with things. But most of the other institutions seem like they want to do it. And it may end up here in Louisville with the help of mine. So, any questions on any of that stuff? We have a board meeting coming up, Board of Student Body Presidents meeting coming up. And then similarly, I'll speak to the resolution that Landon put forward about putting student representation on the foundation board when we come to that in your business. So, with that, that's it. Thanks.
All right, guys. So, like Aaron said, the ranking is coming out tonight. So, as you guys know, when we go to bowl games, SGA typically coordinates some sort of transportation to the games. So, if we were to hypothetically go to Atlanta, if we were to go to a bowl game, we would probably be working to coordinate a bus trip. If it was Arizona or Miami, it might look something more like flight deals. So, as soon as we know more about that, we could maybe not even have a bowl game. It just all depends. I will, I'll be sure to let you guys know how that looks. One thing that we did talk about in the e-board is kind of when I go to my ASAG meeting is encouraging the option for students to buy tickets for the game independently of a package deal, because in the past, in order to go to the game and buy a student ticket, you would have to ride the bus leaving when the bus leaves Louisville and coming back to Louisville when the bus returns. So being that it is New Year's weekend, we figured some students would want the option to just buy the ticket and coordinate transportation on their own. So I will be bringing that up to them. Last meeting, I talked to you guys about coordinating a pre-basketball game event. I did misspeak and I said Molly Malone's. I totally meant O'Shea's. I get my pubs confused. But basically, I'll be looking at some more independent restaurants downtown still to coordinate an event like that. And then I also had some outreach from councils about coordinating off-campus events, like watch parties for maybe graduate or professional schools. That's an awesome idea. So if you want to do that within your council budget and need support, just let me know. But the event that I will be coordinating is to encourage students to go down to the games, because athletics is having the issue of students claiming for their basketball tickets but not attending. As far as diversity goes, so obviously campus climate is a little different right now than it has been over the past couple of weeks. So I've been meeting and talking with Dr. Taylor Archer, the Vice Provost for Diversity and International Affairs, and if you guys hear of any hate speech or vandalism, be sure to let me know and also report it to the specific places that it should go, whether that be ULPD or the Dean of Students office, and it'll be taken care of. And then if you guys do decide to host any events among your councils, just be sure to remain neutral and encourage respectful speech if you do those. And there will be a campus-wide event coming out soon. I'm not sure if you guys saw President Pinto's email, but I'll keep you updated on what that looks like. Last week, I went to the Minority Student Officers meeting, so all of the minority student RSOs have a meeting with all of their presidents. So I went to that, and they are all very interested in partnering with SGA for events. And if you guys have any ideas with your councils where you would like to partner with them, let me know. I have a comprehensive list of all those organizations and their officers. I'd be happy to share that information with you. Still working on the feminine products, which now we are discussing calling menstruation products to be a little less, less categorical with the classification. I am in contact with the SGA representatives from Brown, and they actually established a part of their budget that provides that to their campuses, so I'm looking into that option in addition to the grant writing, so, yeah.
All right, everybody, I have a really short report because I have 2 guests that are coming today that are really exciting. But just really quickly, so great academic policy board meeting. I'll have more updates on that next meeting today, sorry. And then if you guys have any feedback about advising within your schools, just feel free to email me. You can search me in the UofL directory. I'd be interested to hear those. And then Student of the Month, just keep getting people in. There's only 2 for this month so far, so definitely get your constituents in. It's a good package. So other than that, I have, first of all, Vice Provost Bagani and Strategic Enrollment Student Success. That's your title, correct?
Yeah.
All right. That's all you go.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be here. Thank you for the SGA leadership for giving me the opportunity to just have a couple minutes in front of you today. I won't take up too much of your time, but I have been here about 7 weeks now. And yes, I'm the Vice Provost for Strategic Enrollment Management and Student Success. It's a long title, and getting that on a business card was particularly interesting. One of the first things, and I talked about this during my interview, was really getting the opportunity to get out and meet with students in particular, but other faculty, staff on campus. I've been meeting with the deans. I have all the dean meetings set up. I've been meeting with some of the chairs, meeting with the advisors, and really getting out and getting to know the campus. And one of the real important pieces for that is getting to know the students. And when I think about that, I think about probably a smaller group. Could probably spend all day doing this, but you know, having the opportunity to put together some focus groups where I can talk to you and get ideas. And some of the things that I'm thinking about is advising and talking about your experience here at the University of Louisville. So that would certainly be one of the areas that I'd like to talk about. Admissions is one of the areas that reports to me. So your decision to attend, you know, why did you, what was your choice? Why UofL, why not somebody else? Who else were you thinking about? Maybe students that you know that have left, why did they leave UofL? You know, one of the things that's really important to me is I want to, every student that we matriculate here at the university, we want to graduate. We're not there, we have work to do. So I want to find out what are, I can look at the data all day, I'll be doing that, but having the opportunity to talk to students that might have left, that you might know that have left friends, what are they thinking about? What are the reasons that they might be doing that? I'm also going to be putting together a strategic enrollment management planning group, and I'll be asking the best approach for having somebody to be part of that group. And this is a group that's going to guide, haven't decided on the length of the plan, but a 3 to 5 year plan for the university. And this will talk about the students that we're going to recruit, diversity, international, you name it, where we want to be with our graduation rates, all the different geographic diversity. And so we're gonna talk about all these different aspects as part of the plan. And having the students' input obviously is extremely important to that. Probably someone from the undergraduate and the graduate side as well. Some of the other things I like to talk about, and these are things that I've come across since I've been here and heard about during the interview, but you know, I really think University of Lou is a wonderful, you saw that, you enrolled and matriculated here at the university. It's really a wonderful opportunity, and I believe over this term of the plan, we're gonna have an opportunity to grow. And so what does that mean? You know, what does that mean for classes that might have bottlenecks right now? Where do you see the bottlenecks? What's frustrating with that? What do you like? And so to hear from you, students, about that process and ways that as a university we can look at it differently and approach it, maybe different kinds of classes, that type of thing. Also the process, you know, the different processes that you went here at the university, particularly for me, I have the application transfer process under me, but certainly from the graduate side as well. What was it like? What was the experience like for you as a student? So all of this is going to be important for me to learn and to get to know about the UofL, to make decisions that I can make that are informed, which is important at the end of the day, what I want to do. So that was really just a quick, I mean, really excited to be here, and I'm really looking forward to working with you, and it's a huge group. I think the last institution was about maybe that big, half the size, so it's great though, a lot of great input from students around campus, so thank you.
Dr. Payette from the QEP process, so she'll kind of remind you guys what all that is, and then she has some action items for all of you all.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm just going to take a few minutes. My colleague Nisha Gupta came in October. How many of you remember she talked about the new second year initiative that we're working on? Some of you remember? Okay. So again, just to give you a quick thumbnail and about it, an update on where we are, and also some surveys that Meredith will be collecting at the end of the meeting, and as a way to also bring your voice directly into the project, so about your experience at UofL. So let me start by reminding you about the purpose of our Quality Enhancement Plan. Our Quality Enhancement Plan, also known as our QEP, this is a new aspect required by SACS, that's our University Accrediting Agency, as I think many of you already know. And basically what SACS says is UofL and every other school in the southern region, you can't just go through 10 years of accreditation and show us their curriculum every 10 years. Now, you need to show us student data, student learning data, and you need to say, what did you learn and what are you going to improve, right? So we don't want just UofL just reporting on what's happening. We want UofL also saying, this is where things aren't working for our students, and this is what we're going to do to change it. So that's really what the QEP is. It's for us to decide what is it working on our campus around student learning and what are we going to do to improve it. So in 2007, we started Ideas to Action, or I2A, our critical thinking QEP. Now we are at the next 10-year cycle, ready to start the next QEP. So what are we going to focus on? A year and a half ago, we gathered a group of faculty and staff. I co-chair that committee, and we include students on that group. And we started looking at student learning data, and here's what we noticed. A problem happening between our second and third year. We're losing students between the second and third year. As we drilled down, we started to look at, well, what's happening to those second year students? And we realized the students that were having the most trouble, not only academically, well, not exclusively those students, but those students academically and also being able to make it to the third year, are students who are undecided or who fall into that. Some students who are undecided, some students who are pre-unit, so they haven't gotten into the unit of their choice, might be speed school or business or nursing, where you need to have the grades to get into the upper level courses. But we also know there's also second year students that are decided on paper but undecided up here. So what we find is, and the research supports this, is that when those students, not all of them need it, but some do need extra support to help them figure out, why am I here, what am I doing here, what am I really good at, what's my major going to be, and all that kind of thing. So we have a lot of programs at UofL that support first year students. Think of all the programs we have. Can anyone name one program that's specifically for second year students? Oh, ambassador program, okay. So I think that one bridges first and second year? I know it supports first year students. Okay, so maybe we've got an ambassador program, but we, and along with other schools, are now waking up and going, oh, second year students need their own kinds of support systems. And so what are we gonna do about it? So this is where we are. We are proposing for our QEP, which will be submitted to SACS in a proposal form in March, is a new elective for second year students that we are going to pilot. Okay, so we're not introducing this permanently in the curriculum, but we want to pilot it, where second year students who fall into the categories that I mentioned can take a seminar that provides some more intensive advising and some opportunities to bring career and academic counseling into the same conversation for these students. Well, at the same time, they're taking, in this seminar that with 20 other students, so it's a small seminar, also has an academic topic, an academic theme, in which the students are engaged in an inquiry project with learning skills that they can take into any major. So it's kind of a dual inquiry process. So where you come in is we have spent several months since really, I guess since the beginning of the semester, but continuing on, asking for feedback from students, faculty, and staff on the project. We also have a very specific, just a group of students meeting monthly to help us shape this project. Meredith, thank you, is serving on the university-wide committee, helping shape it, and has been a great voice in addition to that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we want to continue to invite you and your various networks to continue to weigh in. We have a website where you can learn more about it, and anyone can give feedback on any student or member of the community can give feedback on the project. So I hope what you hear is this is for a subset of students, but we need all members of the community to weigh in on the project and give us feedback. So on that note, like I said, I have two surveys. Let me say this. One of the things is we said, let's have focus groups where we have groups of like 12 to 15 students coming and talking in depth about their experience. Guess how many students we had show up to our first focus group? One. So we had another focus group, and then you wouldn't believe all the emails and all the networks we tried to get. So we said, okay, so now that's not working. So we worked with getting out, and then we said, okay, so we're gonna develop these surveys, and we've now had close to 200 students fill out one or both of the surveys, specifically around the path at UofL they took in choosing their major, and their confidence and sense of academic and social belonging, which the research shows, again, is a key part in students finding their path in college. So that's helped us quite a bit. And so on that note, I'm going to pass around this and ask you here, before you leave today, to fill out one or both of the surveys, assuming if they apply to you, and give them to Meredith. So the first survey I'm going to circulate is one about choosing your major. We're specifically looking for students that are second year or beyond to fill out the surveys. So reflecting back on their second year or in their second year. So this one is if you had a particular, a couple students I talked to were like, oh, I knew what my major was when I was 11 and it's never changed. Most students I talk to, that's not true. Okay, so I don't know what it is for you, but we would appreciate if you can give us feedback on that process. And then one on your experience of academic confidence and academic and social belonging at UofL. So I'm going to circulate these. We also would welcome you if you're interested in us coming and meeting with a student group and having them do a focus group or surveys. We're happy to work with you to reach out to more students as needed. This is also, I will leave some of these flyers with you because we circulated these back in October. But if you want, actually, you know what I'll do? I'll just pass it with that. All the extra flyers go to Meredith, okay? How does that sound? Does that sound like a good process? How many of you think this is a good, would be helpful for second year students at UofL, generally? Yes? Okay, good, thank you. Your input is really important. I tend to get, not all, but I tend to get a lot of faculty pushing back, thinking this is unnecessary. And so bringing the student voice, this is why it's really important. That's why we get one student showing up, we're like, this isn't gonna work. We're not putting forth a 5-year project that's supporting students without the student voice. So please, fill out a survey, go online, contact me, contact Meredith if you're interested in getting more involved or know students who want to have a voice in the project. Thank you. All right, so pass that around. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I hope you've had a great Tuesday. I'm sick per usual. I feel like every Tuesday I come in, I feel sick, so I'm really sorry about that. So please bear with me. I'll try to make it quick. This is just a reminder to fill out the dining survey from Aramark. I know I sent it over Blackboard. I'll be more than happy to do it over again. I think Aramark also sent an email about a month ago. So just make sure that your opinions are heard. And last week I didn't have many meetings, but this week is like the week of meetings. So tomorrow I'll actually be meeting with administration to go over changes in the safety escort service and just overall improvements on safety so that I can report back to you guys and just let you all know what they've been working on and how hard they've been working. So I'll get more details on that after tomorrow. And then on Friday I'll be meeting with administration to also go over changes to the UofL app, the improvements, and how we move forward in the future with the changes that we want to do. And what SGA is also wanting to do as well. And I'm sure 2 weeks ago you guys remember Buzz coming. Raise your hand if you were here for Buzz, their presentation. Just to give you all a short statement, we've decided not to support Buzz and continue we've decided not to support them and not to continue conversations with them about this. So just to FYI. And then also with my committees, I met with safety committee last night, so thanks to everybody that met. And SAC committee, you will get an email from me this week, just going over some details. Tim, do you want to just speak on anything about the SAC? I didn't know if you wanted to say anything special. We had a staff renovation leadership meeting on Friday that I went to. It was really helpful. I feel like a lot of my comments are about carpet, so I'm sorry, but there's a lot of things coming and it's looking awesome. I'm really excited about it. I know you guys will be very impressed. And then just a final thing, Julie Weber, she's the director for Housing and Residence Life. She'll be coming during the announcement section of our meeting tonight to answer any questions from you guys, just about goals that Housing and Residence Life has, the way that they want to move forward in the future with their room rate increase. So just take that time to really ask questions for her. She might talk for a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, but I think she really wants to hear from you all. So if you have any questions to ask her, please ask her, because I know she really wants student input, and I'm only one person, so I really can't give her that much. And then the last thing, I intern at a nonprofit law firm downtown, and on Friday I was just kind of going through paperwork, and I found these pamphlets, and it's basically your rights as a campus student under Title IX, and they just kind of go over it, which is kind of more of Amanda's thing, but I just kind of found these and just wanted to pass these out, but they kind of illustrate the different rights that you have as far as reporting things that you see, things that you can say, things that you can do under the university, so I'll just pass these around. And that's all.
All right, we'll go to Capital College of Business.
No report.
Music? No report. Nursing.
Yes, Brian Zawonka School of Nursing. We're starting our service activity for this semester. We're going to collect donation items for backpacks, or butterfly backpacks, which is a cool organization that was started by one of the students at UofL School of Nursing overdosed on heroin in 2014, and her mom created this nonprofit that collects toiletries and other supplies for recovering addicts and puts them in a backpack and some encouraging notes and like a notebook with different stamps and stuff just to write down their thoughts and whatnot. So we thought it'd be a good idea to team up with them after she spoke to us. So that's our service activity.
Law. Dentistry.
We just got back from our National Leadership Conference and found out a bunch of really cool changes coming into the dental field, so we brought those back to our constituents. We have a Friendsgiving for faculty on Thursday, and we're going to be serving our
conference, March 24th and 25th. And the submission deadline is about 5 weeks earlier. And it's School of Interdisciplinary and Graduate Studies Grad Student Appreciation Week. So we're putting together some pop-up lounges with coffee. That's all.
Ready? This is all schools.
Oh, sure.
Ready? Manny, go ahead.
Motion to amend the order of the day to add SGA Appropriations Committee under reports of boards and standing committees.
Motion to add appropriations to the agenda today. Second. Discussion on this. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? All right, we'll add that into the order of the day. Any other, while we're going on that? All right. Boards and standing committees, board Amanda.
Okay, so I covered most everything in my EVP report. The only other thing is I asked the council presidents to come up with about 3 tangible ideas for resolutions that they would like to see pass through the Senate. So if you guys have any for your council, I'm requiring them to bring those to our next meeting. So shoot them any ideas that you may have.
All right, guys. First I want to just say thank you to Keith, Matthew, and Kyle for volunteering to do our S&T interviews. That really helps out a lot, and I hope you enjoy the free lunch, so that's fun. Also, Amanda said in her report game watches. If you guys are interested in doing that, Kevin here is our campus life chair, and we do game watches all the time. We'd love to partner with you guys for any of those events if you're interested in doing that. Some of the past events we had a midnight movie trivia, which turned out great. We half filled the Floyd, and a ton of people came out. We gave out free little small movies for everybody who won. We also had the Cardinal Commute, which was for commuter students. Kara and Avery on Outreach Committee planned that. We had over 200 students come out, and it was like $1 a student. So that was really good, I guess cost-wise. We also had our biggest event planned by Engaging Issues. I don't think they're here. But they did the Pride keynote speaker, which was Michael Sam, the first professional openly gay athlete in the NFL. And that was great. We filled what we could get from the NPR because there was some silly regulation about that. But we had about 400 people come out. There's a really live question and answer thing, so that was great. Coming up, we have the mannequin challenge, which is just like this silly thing. We got this new camera and we wanted to try it out. But it's just to show that we are like a really cohesive and like equal opportunity community, the UofL community, I should say, in a very polarized nation. So we were just going to do a mannequin challenge type thing on the West Plaza at 11 a.m. on the 17th. So if you guys want to come out to that, sort of like show your support for everything going on. We also have a Pop and Privilege event, which is tomorrow in Miller Hall, just sort of an event talking about what privilege means and sort of like how you can be more equal to everybody and treat everybody equally. Put on That's Why Diversity. We also have an open mic night, which Kevin's putting on. A couple of you came up to me after a meeting last time and were interested in that. If you have anybody that wants to perform at that, we always have quite a few people come out. It's a great opportunity for them to show off some of the things they're working on in school. And then finally, we have the Battle of the Branches event put on by Outreach. And that's sort of like a veterans thing. It's going to be a bowling event at Executive Strike on 11/18 at 8:30. So if you know anybody that might be interested in that, we reached out at the Veterans Dinner, but might be a fun event for them to do. But thank you very much.
Thank you, ELSP.
Okay. You guys, I'll keep this pretty brief. I know you have a pretty packed schedule today. We have Elderfest coming up tomorrow in Strickler Hall. We'll have foods from different cultures and booths set up to talk about aging in different populations. I think public health will be there. On Friday, we have Relay for Life. We hope everyone goes out to that to support to fight against cancer. We will also be making bandanas for dogs while we're at Relay for Life. So if that interests you, you can come out to that. And then we actually have a position open on our board for the spring, Associate Director for Veterans Initiatives. If that interests you, or if that interests someone you know, you can email me at operations@uoflesp.org and talk about it.
Go right there. All right. We have the appropriations in?
Yes. So as you may know, your councils only have 75% of your budget that was passed last year to operate with right now. And that extra 25%, can you So that extra 25% is basically withheld by the Appropriations Committee until your council puts in a formal request to request the additional funding that we have withheld. This is something that's been going on for several years. This is standard practice. So basically what the Appropriations Committee did today was to formalize the policy of applying for and receiving the extra money, that extra up to 25%. And so the form is up on the SGA WorkSync. You all should have access to it, and if not, we can edit that later. The due date is January 30th at midnight. And that's just to ensure everybody gets in and we can deliberate with enough time. Thank you. But we will consider things on a rolling basis. Meaning that if you apply today, we'll email you back and say, okay, we're going to hear your case on November 29th, which would be our next meeting. Say you apply sometime in December, then we'll contact you. It'll probably be in January. If you do end up waiting until the last minute, we'll have to spread you out over January and maybe March if it takes that long. So hopefully you all have access to it. I'll just quickly scroll through it. So you can request up to 25%. You don't have to request the full 25%, okay? But that's up to your council to determine. We ask that you submit 3 documents to complete this. You need to submit your entire budget for this current operating year. Not the budget we'll be discussing later on, but the budget you're currently under, that proposal that you initially submitted, your council submitted last year. The second form we're going to require of you is basically how you spent that 75% so far in your council. So basically, we did this event, it cost this much, we're doing this event, it's costing this much, so on and so forth. That's 75% that you have now. Now, the third document we request is basically your proposal amount from that 25% that we have withheld, and basically how your council plans to spend that money that you are requesting. And it's very important, this part, because it shows the Appropriations Committee that you're committed to actually spending the amount you are requesting. The problem with this is if you end up requesting a certain amount of money and have an amount left over, that leftover student money gets automatically turned over to your respective dean's offices for their discretion. Meaning the dean could possibly purchase a whole room full of pencils if they saw fit. So it basically puts it into the dean's office if you request any amount of money in that 25% and don't spend it by the end of the academic year. Now, whatever you don't request formally to be given to you in an extra in that 25% will basically roll over back into SGA. And basically we can set as a Senate basically how we want to spend that extra money that was not requested by the councils. So it's up to the council to kind of balance the risks and benefits of requesting a certain amount of money, but also running the risk of not actually spending that kind of money. And when the appropriation these forms, we're going to have to keep that in mind when we vote to disperse the funds. And so what's new this year, right here in this clause, we basically are going to encourage your council to send someone on a volunteer basis from your council to represent your budget request if you so choose to request that extra money. And this is just to ensure that you have a representative there in front of the Appropriations Committee that says these are the reasons why we are requesting X percent and these are the items on which we will spend it. Make sure you just upload those documents. It will close January 30th at midnight, so nothing will be considered after that. But again, we'll contact you with a specific date if you do send a representative of when we are going to hear your case, so to speak, or take a vote on your council budget. So if you guys aren't able to access this on the OrgSync page, please let me know, and we'll get that fixed for you. That's an easy fix. But other than that, does anybody have questions about this process? Yes?
So you could apply for your extra 25% and appropriations could deny you that money? Is that what you're saying basically?
The Appropriations Committee does have that within their power, but basically if the council justifies that they're going to actually spend that 25%, then it most likely will go through. Just make sure that you have the justifications, the appropriate and substantial justifications that you're actually going to spend that money. Any other questions?
The financial year ends in April, May?
sometime around then. June.
So why is there a deadline of January 30th?
This is just to make sure the appropriations committee has enough time to review the applications and the fact that we need to know how much money is actually going to be rolled back into SGA before that fiscal year ends. I mean, if you were to apply, say, if we extended the deadline into May, it would make no difference because the council would be dissolved and new one would be instated.
Right, maybe not all the way to May. I'm just thinking that a lot could change after January 30th.
Typically, the deadline is usually set in mid-February to late January. That's just how the deadline has always been set, just to make sure we have appropriate ample time to get through all the requests, because we're going to have to hear 12 of them, and make sure that they can get that out. Because if you apply on the 29th and we say, look, we can only hear you in our second meeting in February, first meeting in March, you're not going to get that money until then. So we want to make sure that you have ample amount of time to apply for your reasonings and be able to use the funds that you applied for. Any other questions? Okay, great.
All right. I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from November 1st. Second. Discussion on this, changes? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, nay? Abstentions? Motion passed. All right.
Hello again. So basically, do you have to protect So, just from last meeting, I introduced the budget to you, the budget that unanimously passed through the Appropriations Committee, and asked you all to review it to come prepared for the first reading. We are mandated in our bylaws to have 2 readings of the budget, so we can't suspend the rules and go into a second reading. We have to do a first reading in this meeting, and then on November 29th, we'll have the second meeting and final vote on the budget. So this is a good time. If you do have any questions or kind of want to know what's up in the budget, this is a good time to ask. I'm here to answer any questions you all might have about it. And basically, you'll pass the language of the budget and this part, which is the attachment, but then will be turned into the actual operating budget once the bill passes. So, are there any questions? Any and all questions about the budget?
I entertain a motion to send this to a committee.
Well, it doesn't have to go through committee.
Between first and second reading, go to state.
Even though it came out of committee? Its origin was a committee.
Okay.
So it wouldn't need a formal second reading. Or it would need a formal second reading, but not after sending it to you. Sorry.
So it's just.
So any last minute questions about the budget? I mean, if you have an amendment or anything like that, this would be the time to kind of propose that. The procedure. Okay. So this is the resolution to add a student representative position on the UofL Foundation Board of Directors. This is something that President Vance has been working on with the Board of Directors, and something we've been in conversation about. And it was time to bring a resolution to the floor of the Senate to finally put this into actual solidified action. Again, this is a resolution, so President Vance will take this to the appropriate bodies, will take it to the foundation, take it to the Board of Trustees for their deliberation. So this is our perspective representing the student body in this resolution. So I'll walk you through it a little bit. I won't get too mixed up in the legalese. Basically, the first clause is just noting that there is no student representative position on the Board of Directors. So that's basically a statement of the original issue. And these 1, 2, 3, 4 whereas clauses here in the middle are just basically verbatim language from the Foundation's Articles of Incorporation, which is the document that the Kentucky legislature passed to basically allow the foundation to exist back, I believe, in the 80s. So this is basically the mission and the purpose of the foundation, and we believe, including in this resolution, will remind them that a lot of these, if not all of these provisions and these purposes and these goals of the foundation actually influence students very profoundly. We want to make sure that that language is in the resolution. Now, the next two whereas clauses is just basically saying what I just said, that it reaffirms that the student body is actually very much impacted by the actions of the UofL Foundation. I think going through the past year or so, we certainly know that from experience. And then the last whereas clause is basically saying that President Vance represents the student body as the elected president of Student Government Association and as a trustee of the university. And so that sets it up for the actual action clauses. And basically this first one is saying that the student body, represented through us, strongly encourages the UofL Foundation to add a permanent student body representative position on its board of directors with full voting privileges. And that's basically to bring it into compliance or bring it into what we believe the foundation's purposes are for the student body. That puts a student representative, a student voice on the foundation board in the creation of their policy and their actions and so on. The second clause is just basically reaffirming that each university student body president will be holding this position as the elected representative of the student body. Basically, once they take office, they will also subsume this position, and when their term in office has come to an end, the next president, SGA president that's been elected, will subsume the position and create that continuous cycle. The last clause is important just to basically separate us from making any kind of judgments about their actions, specifically about what they're investing in or where their money's going. Basically, we don't want this to be construed as saying you're doing things wrong or you're doing things awesome or anything like that. We want to remain neutral in that regard, and we just want to posit the idea of putting a student body representative on the foundation board. Any questions?
Is there any way to put it in here that, I didn't see it specifically outlined where the student body president, which I'm sure they will anyway, but to make sure that it's stated that they have to inform at least the SGA about specific things that they found out, it's not under some sort of confidentiality clause, because, you know, it'll be wonderful if that person serves, but let's say someone isn't as transparent as Aaron in future generations and decides that they don't want to really let the student body know, then even though we'll have a representative on the foundation, that doesn't necessarily mean that that transparency will be reflected to the student leaders.
I would certainly hope so, but yes, you do make a good point that it's not explicitly stated in the resolution.
It is in the Constitution and the bylaws, though, that the president is supposed to report back to the Senate on any action for boards that they serve on. So, yeah, they can always be grilled. So you could always ask me for information that I did not. I mean, I'll always give it to you, but that power is laid out in the Constitution that the president has to answer consent for any board that he serves or they serve on.
Yeah.
So Landon, you and I had spoke earlier about that the things that the Senate passes this year are not binding for future years. So aren't we effectively just voting to put Aaron on the board then?
Not necessarily. This resolution is basically a statement of affirmation from the student body that we want to create, or we encourage the foundation board of directors to create a permanent position under their bylaws. So therefore, their bylaws would dictate that they actually recruit the student body president every single year that they're elected. You know, this resolution, you know, if we pass it, you know, it wouldn't necessarily matter because of that, because the bylaws would then say that the student body president has to be on their board of directors. So then it becomes their policy, their solidified bylaws.
So then we're asking them to rewrite their bylaws.
Correct.
Yes, because if we were able to have done this by manner of the board of trustees, I think it probably would have already happened. But without these kinds of statements of affirmation and support, specifically from myself, President Pinto, Chairman Benz, and now Chairwoman Moore, we don't have the support and the necessary political capital behind it, in my opinion. And specifically, we give it an immense amount more with having the Student Senate behind it, because the University of Louisville Foundation is a separate entity. But it seems to be somewhat of a common practice across the nation that you do have a student representative on them, so they control the endowment and various aspects of student support services. And similarly, The intention is I think they're going to move into session in the next foundation meeting in December to start a review of their own constitution and bylaws, given that was one of the provisions that was put forward by the board, I think in our September meeting. Yes.
I mean, maybe this is beside the point, but what if the student body president does not want to serve on the board of, or the foundation? But can we put in there something about a proxy can be someone who is willing to serve?
I don't know of a person running for student body president would ever shirk their responsibilities. Ultimately, a proxy would be up to the bylaws of the board. And I don't believe the meeting would know that there are proxies allowed. I believe that all members have to be present for the meeting, meaning that the student body president would have to be present at the meeting.
Yeah, the board of directors functions the same as the board of trustees in the fact that I can't send a proxy. If I'm not there physically, I either have the video in and take a mark of not being there.
Okay,
So I understand the point, I understand the
all
point
I'm
you
saying
make.
is that this resolution is going to make it part of the student body president's like job requirement to do this.
Correct, and there's a huge, and I will completely say there's a huge intersection between my term on the board and what I think we could be doing on the foundation that we have access to. And I think this is a similar measure that I hope the faculty will pick up, and similarly staff, they feel that it's necessary for their own endeavors to make changes in the foundation policy. But I think out of all the populations, we have the most salient interest and really do need to be getting in on these conversations, especially with the vote. So, you all read the news. It's been on it.
So this one, we will entertain a motion to send to a committee. Designate the board. Your motion.
So moved.
Motion to send it to executive board.
Second.
Motion second, discussion on this. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion passes. All right, thank you, Madam.
Oh,
Yes, sorry.
Since the budget already had a first meeting and its initial appropriations, can't we vote on it today?
This was the first reading here. We said there are two readings here.
No, we saw it at the previous meeting.
As a presentation, not as a reading.
It wasn't passed formally through that appropriations board yet.
No, we did.
Correct? Landon, you can speak.
Well, so you're referring to the last meeting, right, when I talked about it? That was not an official item of business. That was just a report, so that didn't count as its first reading.
Hi guys, so I'm Sarah Pennington, I'm the Supreme Court Chief Justice. By mail, I had had contact with the law team during the process of our constitutional review. Yeah, get that. So just an update on the constitutional review. At this point, all of the councils, excluding one or two that have a couple lingering questions about clauses and language, all of you have been approved to move on and submit to SOAB. If you have not submitted to SOAB at this point, if I'm correct, the contact for that is Tyler, so please forward a copy of your constitution to Tyler. Now that being said, at the beginning of the constitutional review, we made mention of putting your constitutions on the same website where the current SGA Constitution and bylaws are hosted by the Dean of Students Office. This is just something that Dean Martis requested so that we wouldn't have future problems of people saying, oh, we can't find our constitution, or oh, one never existed. We're going to come back and do that at the end of the academic year, particularly just so that for those of you that hosted private elections, or it was your first time in the GE, or for newer councils like School of Music has kind of a new council going on this year, and they're determining a lot of things this year. We just want to use that period of time kind of as a review before we officially post to the Dean of Students website. So that aside, I'm here to talk about the general election rules today. As you guys know, we host a general election at the top of every spring semester. The court met on October 29th to talk about the general election. As you guys know, last year we banned slates from the by doing that, we really felt that we opened up elections to any student who wanted to run or take their shot at SGA. So our focus this year was really concerned about our voter turnout. We have really low voter turnout for our university size, which is a huge conflict because low voter turnout to a high potential voter ratio means really low legitimacy for our student government. So we have come up with a couple of new procedures that we intend to implement at the start of the new election season. These are separate from the election rules, but I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about them in case you have questions. Part of that is that I really want to involve the associate justices more in the election process and the overall functions of the court. Sometimes they just seem like they're here to hear cases, and I kind of wanted to change that. So in the same sense that they took on circuits for the constitutional review, again, the associate justices will be taking on circuits for the general election. And just so everybody knows, we have graduate, arts and sciences, music, Kent School, business, public health, education, and nursing all in the general election. So we're really excited for that, and we've got a justice assigned to each college to maintain and distribute information to that college throughout the general election process. That being said, I don't know how, I mean, a lot of you have ran in the general election before or are familiar with it, so you probably know that we have 2 to 3 interest meetings with every general election. Past chief justices have made those interest meetings required. I decided not to do that just because I didn't want to forsake anybody their chance of running in student government. And this year, kind of the problem that happens with those 2 to 3 interest meetings is that there's a snow day or that there's a holiday, and then we don't hold the interest meeting, and so then you've only got 1 or 2 meetings to really distribute the information. So this year, I really wanted to bump up the number of interest meetings we had, so I'm utilizing my associate justices, and every justice on the court is going to be required to hold 2 interest meetings within their circuit, and then they're going to be required to seek out an RSO or an organization on campus where they will go out and host another interest meeting. So that's a lot of interest meetings going on. We're hoping to get those publicized via listservs, via org syncs, anything that we can so that we make sure we're really reaching out to the student body and notifying them of the election, the elected application process, and how they can vote. I also had a meeting with Pam Curtis and Kathy Meyer in the Office of Student Involvement. They were really concerned about promoting elections this year, things that they could possibly do to help. They knew that notoriously the court has a really small budget to promote elections. We've only got $500, and so we try to keep our costs minimized. But when you're trying to order yard signs, banners, and host a debate with food to attract students, the costs really become kind of wild. There's also a manpower issue. There's only a couple of us on the court, and I'm sure many of you know, like when you're hosting an event or you're trying to distribute material promoting an event, it's really difficult. So Kathy Meyer actually suggested that we solicit the help of an organization which I believe is a subsidiary of ELSB called Vote Everywhere. And essentially Vote Everywhere has agreed to remain nonpartisan for the duration of the election. Their normal function is to promote state and federal elections and to show kids like where you can sign up, voter registration, how to find your polling station. But this is a newer organization on campus, and Kathy Meyer said that this would be great training for them to begin becoming involved with young voters. And so what they're going to be doing is, like I said, they will remain nonpartisan. They will be thoroughly debriefed on what they can and cannot do before they ever begin interacting with voters. They will be covering the cost of printed material, buttons, yard signs, things like that. They won't have candidates' names or anything like that on them. What Vote Everywhere will specifically be promoting is where to vote, how to vote, when to vote. So they will only be concerned with encouraging students to vote. And that allows us to kind of focus on the interest meetings, focus on the questions of the candidates during the election season, and also to focus on the debate. And then the last thing that we have noted that we have not yet begun to coordinate, we still have some time obviously, is I don't know if any of you remember last year, but SGA hosted a polling station in the Red Barn. So polling stations have kind of special requirements. You can't use personal laptops, which means we have to rent laptops from the library.
There's about, I think, 150 students, 200 maybe.
Yeah, so it really recruited a lot of students, and what happened was the associate justices went and just kind of oversaw what was going on. And we would really like to do that again, and hopefully maybe have 2 polling stations this year. We could potentially do one in the library and do one in the Red Barn to hit those 2 different sections of campus. And so we'll be reaching out to SGA's political director to further coordinate that.
Can I ask something else too, Sarah? That was your last one?
Yeah, that was my last procedural.
So Jake has been doing some really hard work to kind of make access to voting easier, because we also like to get our numbers up. So similarly, he's been working with the Chief of Staff of Technology, the Dean of Students Office right beyond there, and they've been able to essentially put together a way that we'll be able to do voting similar to the way that you do course evals, to where you'll just go straight to a URL link. Like, so for course evals, you go to yourwordisheard.com, you put in your ULink password info, and then you have a landing page, and it'll just be right there in front of you, so you don't have to continue to go through the typical, go to ULink, click on Student Services, ballots, or go to the bottom, ballots. It's going to be that much easier. And so Frank has requested that we kind of pilot it on Senate, like a little mock election. So once we get that up and ready, we'll send that your way, and Jake is going to coordinate that. And so hopefully that'll help out a lot. And then now you'll just see on yard signs that say, go vote at UofLSGAelections.com or whatever you are, I'll that to be.
Does anybody have any questions about the procedures we're planning to implement?
I have a couple of questions. You mentioned that the associate justice are assigned to their respective circuit, and that they'll work with an RSO to create these interest sessions for running. My question is, how will the selection of these RSOs be conducted, and how will it remain impartial?
So largely what we're going to do is we are going to seek out RSOs, and it's not necessarily as impartial as you'd imagine, but we've also created a clause to accommodate for those RSOs that might feel left out or like we're being choosy. We want to seek RSOs that have not presented in the general election before. We want to recruit potential diversity options that have previously not been represented in the election, that maybe just haven't received the information or don't feel confident in the election process. Now, that being said, we understand that kind of creates a piecemeal sort of phenomenon. So we've added a clause in the election rules in which any RSO, any organization, any council, any subsidiary of a council may request for the student government or for the Supreme Court to host an interest meeting at their association meeting, whatever be it, a time convenient for them. Obviously, if we have a high volume of requests, there could be a chance that we might not be able to meet all those requests, but we did want to have that option open so that we could make sure that if people wanted the information, if other RSOs heard about the justices going and speaking to certain RSOs, that they would feel welcome to request that information as well.
I had a follow-up before my second question. There are almost 500 RSOs registered on this campus. There are even more that are inactive or may become active during this period. How do you plan to sift through all 500?
So largely, we've been going through org scene, we've been discussing RSOs that we're familiar with. A lot of people have looked into their own colleges and said, well, this is a new RSO, or this is an RSO that I haven't seen in elections before. And essentially, as we know, the slate's kind of incurred a diversity problem. There are certainly organizations here that are more represented than other organizations. There are certainly populations here that are more represented than other populations. So the court is taking this measure as another measure of inclusion to promote diversity within the elections and to break up disenfranchisement that has largely been occurring in the past years.
And then my second and final question, are there provisions under which to challenge if any of the RSOs or the ELSB subsidiary you mentioned, God forbid, but if they did show any bias or violate any of the election rules, are there any procedures under which to challenge?
So naturally, you would just pursue the same procedures that you would as if you were filing an allegation against another RSO or against another justice. We do have procedures already outlined in the Constitution, so it would just be the traditional complaint filing. Go ahead.
So, from what I understand, RSOs can also endorse candidates, but this, I guess, these would be RSOs that choose to not be partisan and to, how does that work, I guess, is my question.
So Vote Everywhere is the only RSO that will remain non-partisan. Now, the RSOs that we will be visiting for interest meetings, the purpose of interest meetings is just to supply information about the application process, about the guidelines in the rules, what to do, what not to do, and it's just a general spiel introducing students to the general election process. So that's the only information that we'll be distributing. It won't be a situation where we go and talk about candidates or we present candidate platforms. These will happen before the candidates are even established, so it's just an information session about the general election.
That cleared that up. My other question is, I know, like, I think I have a pretty good grasp of why candidates have limited budgets to spend on campaign materials, but do you think that that also sort of lends itself to limited awareness when you can only, because I guess I'm just saying, like, with a certain budget, you can only spend so much money, and there's only so much that can go out for specific candidates. And while it's like to make it more fair, I understand that there's also schools that I think have higher voter turnouts because they're able to put out a lot more material.
So we do have the same values that we adjusted last year in the guidelines, and I promise that we'll actually talk about the rules in just a second. So we do have the same budgets. I understand a great deal where you're coming from, and that's something the court is certainly open to consider, but looking at the value reports in the past year, my big concern is that people weren't really reaching their caps. And even last year, we saw a lot of people who were submitting value reports with $0 or $25. And a lot of that was because I noticed that students were using more on-campus resources, on-campus printing. You can actually go to what used to be Miller IT, I don't know what the new thing is, but they would even print posters and banners for you there.
Okay.
So my hope is that by minimizing the cost, people will take more of an advantage of on-campus resources because we do have a lot of on-campus resources to offer. And part of what the justices will be doing in their circuits is be directing students to resources when they do have those questions. Hopefully the councils and SGA as a whole will be willing to offer their resources to the candidates. I know that SGA and the Senate always offer our printing services and things of the sort. So hopefully councils will partake in promoting that to their own colleges, saying, hey, you can go here and print, hey, we have a button maker, things like that.
Cool.
Point of clarity, be careful now, because you can't print campaign, unless you've changed the rules, you can't produce campaign materials in the SGA office.
So the clause that we kind of, well, we changed it to SGA resources, but the note was that you could use SGA computers according to Senate guidelines. So the use, I mean, we can change that if you would like to, if you guys would like to say, don't touch SGA resources, but largely we've left it up to the Senate to define how the candidates will not use the SGA resources. So.
Just real quick on the interest meetings, so the interest meetings that you all are putting on are nonpartisan activities, right?
Yes.
So in general, are interest meetings nonpartisan and we're safe to reach out to people if we think they should?
Yeah, nonpartisan, yeah, interest meetings, if you're just supplying information about where to file applications, how to become a candidate, you can do that and it's largely considered nonpartisan. I would recommend that you not interpret any election rules, and if somebody has a question specifically about the election rules, that you defer it to the Supreme Court. But if the councils themselves wanted to say, hey, don't forget that you can sign up to run in the SGA general election and wanted to promote the link that will ultimately lead to applications, we would consider that a nonpartisan activity.
Because we're new to the general election, and so I think we'll need a lot of outreach there.
And for those of you who are new to the general election, feel comfortable. This is a highly accessible court. I believe that we've already showed you guys a willingness to work with you and to not frighten you. So if you have questions or you're new to this process, keep in mind that we will be here to guide you. Everybody has my phone number. That's frightening, but I certainly didn't mind. So do we have?
Could you all potentially maybe even partner with SAB, because I know that with their homecoming, they broke records for voting for kings and queens, and I know that our vice chair wives over there for spirits and traditions, so maybe you can give more insight about it.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys have any recommendations about procedures or different events that you'd like to see within the general election that you believe would help increase voter turnout or make the elections more fair, please send those recommendations to us. I'm always willing
do have a general reminder, since this is the first reading of this, of the general election rules, any changes would be subject to amendment process.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely go through and amend these rules. We would definitely like to get them approved and finalized by the last meeting, the last Senate meeting of the semester, largely because that is what is named for our process. But like I said, anything that you see in these rules, in these clauses that we're about to go over, is completely open to amendment. We're gonna be a little rough about certain things, but certainly we're open to amending different parts of this. So I'm working two computers. So at the October 29th meeting, we met primarily, instead of me issuing a draft and saying, here, tear it apart, we decided to meet and discuss our overarching concerns about the election rules as they have been in the past, and looking at the draft that was largely created by the Chief Justice before me, Benjamin Shepherd. And so the draft that you see, this is still Ben Shepherd's draft, just largely amended with the changes from last year and the changes that we make this year. While the content itself is not necessarily new in all places, we completely retyped this document so that in the future the court can more easily edit it. Ben had a lot of legal margins and things that made it very unkind editing. You would, I swear, backspace once and delete an entire section. So it has been completely retyped just for the convenience of future courts. And the overarching comments about the rules was, we talked about the slate situation. It was great oversight last year that we did make accommodation for a college president and a college vice president slate. And there was little discussion about that. We feel like it's very logical to have an executive president and an executive VP slate, as well as a college president and a college vice president slate. And I'll show you the modifications in just a moment. We also discussed the application process. Last year we had kind of a hairy situation involving the fact that we required both online applications and we required paper applications. We reviewed the clauses that does require that the applications go to be on file with certain offices, but largely it did not define whether or not we need paper or online applications. So this year we will be pursuing online applications. We'll be working with the media directors and the Dean of Students office to decide what that looks like. But if you actually just look, the desktop computer. But you can see that we're hoping to just require electronic copies, and we're also hoping that those electronic copies will just go straight to a service account. Traditionally, they have gone to the Chief Justice's personal email account or SGA email account, and as a Chief Justice last year, I can say that was immensely confusing because applications were getting mixed in with my email, and I had to forward them to a specific folder, and that didn't happen all the time because Outlook is a little picky. So we're hoping that by having the service account, it will preserve those files for us more readily. Established. And we also discussed social media. So social media is something that a lot of colleges across the country are dealing with right now in terms of their student government elections. Obviously, social media is a large part of our lives, but not necessarily the original board or the original student government lives. So those are things that colleges are currently having to build into their rules. And that's something that we want to add to our rules as well, because for the past 2 years, our students have primarily concerned digital media. And so Taylor Forms actually came forth with a lot of information and research regarding social media limitations, and he largely authored the section that we're going to look at on social media. So the initial changes, just some kind of housekeeping changes we made. So we do have new councils in the general election that have not opted to the general election before. And that being said, we also have positions that have not been elected in the general election being elected now. And so to elaborate on what that big jumble of words means is traditionally we elect president, vice president, and senators. But nowhere in the Constitution does it say that those are the only offices we have to elect. So some of the councils came forth and said, well, can we elect this position, which we call whatever title, in the general election? And so we certainly
also altered chapter 103 to include the college president and the college vice president slate. Chapter 105 is the interest meetings, and that's where we include 105.2, requests for interest meetings. The Supreme Court may hold additional interest meetings to explain election procedures for potential candidates at the request of any student government association, subsidiary, or university recognized student organization. And that's basically just a clause making sure that RSOs, SGA subsidiaries know that they have the right to request those meetings and to request that information. Now, 203, which I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I will give you a brief overview of it. 203 is a section largely authored by Kevin Forens and amended by myself in terms of vocabulary that puts limitations on online campaigning. Namely, what it limits is medium. It puts the responsibility for all online posts made on behalf of the candidate to be the responsibility of the candidate. So if somebody makes a post on your behalf and it somehow violates election rules, you're still responsible for that post. Which that is nothing new. That follows court precedent for years. Even if someone hung a flyer on your behalf, you would be responsible for that flyer action. And then the mediums that have been limited, traditionally those are mediums that we have limited in the past. No org sync, no listserv emails, and no university hosted websites. And then we just categorize online endorsements in the same sense that RSOs can openly endorse candidates physically. They can also endorse candidates online, but university entities, departments, or affiliates may not endorse a slate or candidate. And then discussing, oh my gosh. Sorry guys, I don't normally use a desktop computer, so it's very unusual to be using a mouse right now. So I'm set down. Does anyone have a raised hand?
Yeah, so I just had a question about the manner restrictions. You said it's like a general thing. I'm just curious about what your conduct is regarding unrequested support by an organization or by another individual. So if someone supports your candidacy either online or in person and you didn't ask for that support, are you still held liable for that?
Yes, you're still held liable for that. And like I said, that largely pursues SGA, largely pursues Supreme Court precedent in the past. Even if you didn't intend for someone to hang a flyer or to hang a poster or to commit an action on your behalf, we still hold you responsible for that action. Largely in the past, I think it's just because we have large slates and there would be large campaigns behind these slates, so you would have multiple people who, whether or not they were officially on the slate, they could potentially be part of your campaigning team. And so because the court can discern that, we just put the responsibility back on the candidate. You're to be supervising yourself, you're to be supervising your campaign, you're to be supervising material made on your campaign behalf. Now, obviously penalties in terms of that vary, it's up to the discretion of the court. It doesn't mean that you're automatically going to get eliminated from the election. It doesn't even mean you're going to get docked a significant number of votes. It just depends on the nature of the violation and what the allegations and the evidence are. Okay, so this is chapter 401, other resources. The only amendment made was on 401.2. Ben had previously had, we had held, candidates may use student government computers in accordance with student senate guidelines. If any, so we've included 401.2, candidates may use student government association resources. Now, if anybody would like to speak on behalf of that clause, if you guys have resistance or if you're in favor of it.
My only concern with that is for students who haven't been involved in student government previously, if they were running, they might not know where those resources are, because everyone doesn't run with experience.
I'm actually very troubled by this. The resources we have under SGA's purview includes our logo, all of our endorsements, all of SGA's stuff that we put on all this material. And if people were allowed the unrestricted use of these items, it would almost constitute an unofficial and illegal SGA endorsement of a candidate if a candidate were so to use an SGA resource such as a paper with letterhead or envelopes. And even still, if they were not to use something that explicitly says SGA on it, they perhaps could use word of mouth saying that, well, I was allowed to use SGA material as sort of a de facto word of mouth endorsement.
So this is why I believe that Ben included the according to Senate guidelines if any, because by mentioning student government resources or student government computers, we're not necessarily authorizing, nor do we want to authorize candidates to be able to use things that we hand out for SGA purposes, with SGA logos and SGA letterheads. Largely what we just want the candidates to have access to is to the ability to print, the ability to design, the ability to produce material that is traditionally used for a campaign.
Then why were those things not stipulated explicitly?
So previously we had student government computers, and now we have student government resources. The particular stipulation that we made was with the student senate guidelines, if any. And so it would be up to the establishment. It would essentially, the guidelines would be deferred to the student senate to say, okay, what do you have to offer? You guys certainly know better than I do what type of resources are available according to student government officers, and I feel the local deference would better allow for a decision to be made on what resources are appropriate for use by the candidates.
As a follow-up, that would require us passing a concurrent resolution either before, during, or after the passage of these election rules stipulating what can and cannot be used. Would you hold that up in your court if somebody were to file suit under it? Even if it was a resolution?
I mean, essentially what we would imagine, well, so certainly we haven't had a case before in which anybody has used student government computers inappropriately. As I said, the old clause was student government computers. And the purpose of this clause is to give rise to the fact that we want to assist our candidates in any way, shape, or form. The reality is that kids don't have $100 to go spend on printing office mats. And so if we would like to amend the clause to say student government computers to specifically stipulate printing services, or to specifically stipulate whatever printing resources SGA might have to offer, that is really what the court is seeking here. We're seeking SGA to supplement the fact that candidates need certain campaign materials in order to run, and we would like them to be able to have access to those campaign materials.
Is there a way to simply say, barring any official SGA logos, any materials like that in this statement, so that if somebody did use anything that would constitute, or that could seem like an unofficial endorsement by the Student Government Association, then that would be a direct violation of the general election laws or rules?
At this point in time, the language that I'm formulating personally in my head is that candidates may use Student Government Association printing resources, barring anything marked with Student Government Association logos.
What kind of printing resources do we have to offer? I mean, are we going to be, essentially if I let someone use the SGA printer in the office, student funds are subsidizing their campaigns because they pay for our printing. So I take problem with that, and the fact that, the average student would much rather see that money spent on programming than us to have to carve out an allotment for student candidates to run and come print and jam up our printer. UofL already does that.
We just got ink, okay? It was 1 week.
Largely the Senate is in favor of it. We can eliminate this clause. This clause has been a clause that's been maintained in the election rules since, as I can imagine, Ben did the election rules under Brady McReynolds, that this has probably been included in the election rules for many years now. This is just the first time that the Senate has heavily debated it. But if the Senate would feel more comfortable striking it, the court is certainly amicable to striking it. I think we have plenty of resources that we will have to encourage candidates to utilize instead, and the court plans to do that anyways, hoping that the councils would seek out resources in their own college and notify candidates in their college of that.
Again, I just want to caution you on your language. When you bring forth these rules under a first reading, it is no longer under the court's discretion to modify, amend, or change any part of these rules. It is under the Senate's discretion. We would have to debate either whether we wanted to pass a resolution, an act, or an amendment to these rules. So to say that the court has the ability to strike these things or would entertain are not appropriate.
Well, the point is to notify that these rules are amendable, and obviously they are up to the discretion of what the Senate feels is appropriate for the election rules. So that is certainly an option. If this clause is largely disliked or considered unfavorable, then the Senate has the power to remove them from the election rules.
To the extent that this is a problem that we can solve with a 100-word resolution that says each candidate will have access to SGA printing and design resources. I can do that, but that wasn't Aaron's problem with it, and so if we have a more general problem with it, then I think that's what we should be talking about, rather than whether or not we make restrictions in this document or in a separate resolution.
I'll entertain that conversation, having put the budget together, and I'm sure the committee members can back me up on this. I don't remember a line item for campaigns.
Yeah, so that's completely fine. Like I said, these rules are up to the Senate's review and what you guys believe is appropriate. Obviously, the position of the court is that we want to promote elections, we want to promote candidates, we want to give candidates and students the best chance that they can at getting the representation that they want in SGA. So we believe that this would be an appropriate measure, just because it supplemented the fact that, particularly if you're a low-income student, this was a way to facilitate your ability to run in student government. We've already had disenfranchisement issues in the past, so the court's focus this year was taking inclusive measures, making sure to promote inclusive means to make sure that both candidates and voters were supported. But as I've said before, like obviously this clause presents some challenges to SGA. What about the logo? What about the fact that this is a student-funded printing service? What about the fact that the LSP already jams up our printer, lets out candidates do it? So obviously this is up to your discretion. I ask you to consider the pros and cons and go forth from there. I know that we're certainly taking our time on these, so I'm going to go ahead and move to our next amendments. And our final, let me make sure it's not on the page right. Our final change to the rules, apart from completely retyping them so that we can actually edit them then. Oh, 703. And so essentially, I just I just added some vocabulary to the powers and duties of the circuit justices to note that part of their job would be promoting within their circuit, and just kind of making allocations to note that you have circuits now, we have defined duties for those circuits, you will be fulfilling them. And so that was just a modification of vocabulary to make sure that we acknowledge that associate justices have a specific duty of promotion within their circuit.
Since it does seem like there are a lot of concerns with this, you can make a motion to send it to E-Board, and then E-Board can make the amendments. And I know we have one more meeting left in this semester, but we can expedite to the second reading with a 2/3 majority at that meeting. So we can still get it passed this semester if we send it to E-Board to take care of a lot of these issues.
When it comes back to E-Board, it will be technically in this.
Well, let us do amendments. Okay. You're formally doing this first. Okay. Someone wants to. Yeah.
So I move to send the SGA general election rules to the executive board for the appropriate amendments.
What's your name?
Caitlin Crenshaw.
Motion second to send this to E-Board. Any discussion on this? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, nay? Abstentions? All right, we'll send it to E-Board.
So like I said, if you guys have any questions about our general process for creating the rules, or any questions about the procedures we plan to implement with the new general election cycle, just let me know. The rules are largely in your hands right now, so let me know if there's anything I can do to assist you in your further discussion. Thank you kindly.
All right, we've got 2 RSOs to approve.
Correct. So the 2 RSOs for approval are On-Campus Archery and Louisville Young Americans for Freedom.
Entertain a motion to pass those 2. Got Tim in motion and second. Discussion on this, Landon?
Can you read the description of that second one, please?
You're talking about the freedom?
Yes.
Yeah.
conservative message on campus and to promote the freedom of speech on campus.
There's like a broader description for Young Americans for Freedom more generally, that I think is hidden somewhere in their constitution, or maybe I might have had to look for that elsewhere. They might have cited something outside of it. If people care more than just that.
Does anyone want further elaboration on that?
I mean, yeah, if there is that provision, I'd like to hear it.
Because it's a chapter of a national legislation that has a bunch of conservative principles. They actually talk about communism.
Do you remember what part of it you read? You said there was, but it was a description of the national organization?
No, this stuff right here is taken from there.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah. I think starting at we as young conservatives.
Yeah, this is.
If it is, there's a clause that we require RSOs to put in the Constitution that doesn't discriminate against or make any impartial decisions on religious affiliation, and right here I say God-given free will. I mean, to me, that seems like pretty loaded bias language.
I saw they have the disclaimer on the original part. I mean, we have multiple fraternities that have Judeo-Christian values as well, Andy, so. And they're on campus.
Today, I'd ask the same question.
I would just ask that we do not discriminate based on viewpoint.
I mean, as long as we can assure that they're not going to discriminate against someone who doesn't believe in God-given free will, then
I
we
believe
would
there
be
was no
okay.
discrimination. They
It
did
says
have
no
to apply.
requirements under their membership.
It was back.
Yeah.
There's no way that any constitution that we approve can ensure that they do not discriminate. It is in their constitution that is there, so if something is brought to our attention then that an act of discrimination occurs, then we can take action. But we can't take a preemptive action or an assumption beforehand.
Motion to approve both RSOs.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second, discussion on this. Let's do the clickers. Everybody's happy. My computer went to sleep. All right, good. Hold on, I'm gonna stop at something that's, I think it's because the computer went to sleep. Oh, man, you gotta push the button again, huh? Try it now. Sorry, it's not working. Let me.
I'm the Director of Campus Housing, and a couple of weeks ago, Lauren, on my behalf, because I was out of town, shared some information with you all about our proposed rate increase for the next academic year. And since I wasn't able to be here, Lauren fielded questions as best she could, but then asked me to come tonight to answer any questions that you might have about housing, about our future plans, about our strategic directions, about some of our goals, and any questions you might have about our need for the rate increase. I know it is late, and I could talk for a really long time on this subject, but I would rather not do that. I would rather just answer any questions that you might have that would allow you to be more informed about our potential rate increase. I don't know how this works. Do I have to call on people? Sure, go ahead.
Just because, I mean, it is a rate increase, it does trigger a little bit of questioning. I was just wondering, is your objective to ask the student senate support or just to inform? Is that, it's great that you're here, I appreciate it, because.
Well, a little bit of both. I have also visited the Resident Student Association, and they did write a letter in support. We are asking for a 3% increase. RSA actually originally supported a 4% increase, and we asked them to support a slightly lower increase. The way our process works is, like with all fees at the university, we have to present to the task force on tuition and fees, and one of the questions they will ask us is what constituent groups have you discussed your potential rate increase with, and what concerns and what feedback did you hear from those groups? So while ideal would be both RSA and SGA writing a letter in support of the rate increase, it is more important to me that you share with me any honest feedback that I can take to the task force on tuition and fees.
This is something I brought up at a farmer meeting, so I don't really go over it too much, but my concerns were about the medical dental apartments and the fact that the facilities there are probably the worst of all of the facilities that they have for any of the student housing, and I thought it would be unfair for those students who are already being charged too much for what they're getting to also have an additional increase on top of it, and whether or not it would be possible for that to be held off for at least a year or so. And maybe there are other residence halls that fall into that category where, like, the other nicer buildings, the increase that they try and find a way to fund some upgrades before they increase the cost of housing for those students.
I don't have any objection to not increasing the medical dental apartments, but that comes with a cost. And I don't disagree with you that building, some of you know I've been here a little bit longer than a year. And we still have some pretty big decisions to make, particularly on the Med Den apartments and on Miller, Freckled, and to a lesser extent, Unitas. They are all old facilities, and we are exploring several different options on what to do with those properties and how to improve them. I do not have a concern about not having a rate increase at Med Den. It's important that you understand that we are a pure auxiliary. We get no university or state funds, and unfortunately our expenses go up no matter what. Our costs go up, our utility costs go up. This year we're getting a big hit because of the changes in the Fair Labor Standards Act and the impact that has on our employees. And we have to either increase rates to cover those things or cut services in order to meet those increased expenses. Med Den is very lightly occupied. Not having an increase there does not have a significant impact on us one way or the other, even with those additional expenses. Can I go over there first?
Yeah.
Okay. So with the increased value, I guess, of student housing, paying me fees, does that mean, as far as compensation for RALs, is that increasing the number that's going to be on that scholarship counted into what they're given, further inhibiting students with a lot of scholarship from being adequately compensated by the job? Because I was a student who was greatly impacted by that this semester, serving as an RAL, and so I'm wondering if that's going to make even more cuts to those students.
That's a really complicated question and a really complicated answer, but the short version is potentially yes, because we're required by, as you know, by federal law to report the actual value of housing. So for students who receive financial aid, we have to report, for RALs, we have to report the actual value of the room in which they live in. So it does increase the reportable amount of financial aid. Yes?
So I wanted to ask a question about where you see this 3% potentially going. I know you may not have all the details. I'm just kind of asking for a broad vision. Is the 3% increase more to keep up with administrative costs, to keep status quo, or would students see a substantial change in their housing arrangements with that 3% increase?
3% does not generate very much money. So I can't say that anyone would see a substantial change in anything. Last year, we had a 2% increase, and as a peer auxiliary, we are subject to the administrative services fee from the university, which last year went up from 10% to 12%. So our 2% increase was completely swept up by that increase. Our 3% increase this year would allow us to meet those new expenses that we anticipate based on inflation, utilities, healthcare, and the big one really is the Fair Labor Standards Act. That has a significant impact on our ability to pay our staff. So a 3% increase would allow us to meet all of those expenses, plus put about $60,000 more into our annual reserve account. We have woefully underfunded our capital reserves, and we have got to be able to build up those reserves. Consider it like our savings account for when we need major repairs or major renovations on buildings. We are not currently eligible for any bond funding or any capital projects from the state. So if something happens, roof needs to be replaced, we have to pay for that out of our capital reserve. So any leftover, and I don't like that term because we are so underfunded on our reserves, but any amount of the increase that is not used for some of those increased expenses would go into the reserves. We do have some very significant changes in the campus housing program coming up next year. Many of you are aware the 4 foundation halls are currently externally managed. That's Kerr's, Betty Johnson Community Park, and Billy Minardi. And those will no longer be externally managed after July 1. The foundation has voted to not renew that agreement and allow campus housing to manage those facilities. So that is one big change. And we are doing that because we can save the foundation about $475,000 a year by allowing us to manage those facilities on their behalf. In addition, we are moving towards a very different staffing model that allows us to increase the number of full-time staff in all of our buildings, which will allow us to increase our level of service programs, student success initiatives in all of our halls to hopefully impact student retention. We had some really nice data that institutional research did this year that shows that our housing program does exactly what national data tells you on-campus housing programs do. The students who live on campus in our living learning communities are retained at higher rates, get higher GPAs, and complete more credit hours. Students that live on campus not in an LLC are right behind them on those same 3 student success criteria. And then students who live in our affiliated properties, Clubhouse, 9, Cardtown, et cetera, are right behind them. The students who live off campus continue to lag behind on those 3 key student success measures. So the more things we can do to encourage students to live in either our on-campus housing or our affiliated housing helps meet our ultimate goal of increased retention and increased student success. But keep in mind what I said a minute ago, we have some huge decisions to make in the next 6 to 12 months about Miller, Threckle, and Unitas in particular, and then a couple years later, University Tower Apartments in Louisville. Those are older buildings, and we have to balance the need to get them current and meet the amenity demands that our competitors have, and at the same time keep them affordable and figure out a way to do that. Yes?
Sorry, but was there more to your answer to Georgiana's question? Because it sort of seemed like the answer was just
The answer is yes. It's very complicated on how it affects individual students and how we can mitigate some of that effect on students by where we place them in some of our less expensive halls. So the short answer is yes, it will impact that amount of financial aid.
And then I guess my follow-up question would be, I know that it was mentioned that alternatives were being looked at for the way that students, I guess, are compensated for that job, is that something that's still being examined, or do you think that it's probably gonna stay what it is, and so those students will suffer a cut from one year to the next on how much they're receiving if they could choose to continue in their job?
We're still continuing to explore alternative compensation models. Unfortunately, none of them relieve that burden of the cost of housing.
Okay.
Because we will have to continue to provide housing as part of the compensation package.